But in our conversation today, we don't want to take the position that it might not happen. So when we talk about security, when we talk about preventative measures, we want to make sure that it does not happen in our environments. This is what we want to look at. The things that are vulnerable are the assets that are vulnerable in our businesses. We talk about our networks. We talk about digital assets. We talk about our data, our systems, and we even talk about individuals when we talk about cybersecurity. Individuals can all equally be affected. And the 8 things that we want to talk about today that may threaten or may impact our business operations. We want to talk about malware as one of the threats. We want to talk about phishing. I want to talk about denial of service in our networks. We want to talk about data breaches. We're also going to talk about advanced persistent threats, insider threats, zero-day exploits, and social engineering. We're going to expand on this, but I'm sure some of you might have read the article that was in the newspapers today, going rounds about what happened at HIT. When you talk about insider threats, where someone who is internal can actually compromise a business system, and they can steal either money or data through that manipulation. We also are going to talk about cyber security. This is now where we are saying, how do we protect our environment? The practices, the protocols, the technologies that we can deploy to protect our environment. With cyber security, we are saying, we're referring to an aspect of protecting an organization, its employees and assets against cyber threats. Whenever we protect our organizations, we should never leave out the people element as also part of the business, part of the ecosystem that requires our protection. We want to look at global trends or current trends globally in terms of cybersecurity and the attention that businesses are putting in cybersecurity. You realize that in terms of prioritization, the biggest priority is being put on cloud, where to protect that part of the business or that part of the IT infrastructure. 60%, about 59% in terms of priority in protecting our networks. This is through tools like files and any other technology that we can deploy. The endpoint security. So when you talk about endpoint, we're talking about your laptop, you're talking about your gadgets, you're talking about your devices that you use. You would see that there is 50% priority in terms of prioritizing those. You may find that in an organization which is running probably some endpoint security on their laptops or desktops. Everyone who brings in any other gadgets like a tablet or a cell phone is not protected. And that is something that then becomes an issue in an organization. That 50% that is not protected is the gateway to which attackers can come through. Web security, 48%, data protection, 47%, and manage the security services, where we talk about services like your SOC, manage the SOC, only about 40% in terms of priority and investments in that area. But now let's see what happens or what is happening within the region, closer home, and also even a little bit further up within the region to see how the 40–50% that is not protected is harming businesses. Very close to us in South Africa, as you would understand that the extent to which cyber attacks are prevalent in an environment is also a function of how the economy is doing, the currency that is being used. If we are all using Zim dollars in Zimbabwe, we wouldn't worry about crime where money is involved, because if someone cannot steal your money and use it anyway, they will never bother to. But because we're US dollar pretty much denominated, there are also a lot of attacks that are coming to us and people looking for ways to get money from us. But across the border in South Africa, we are losing about 2.2 billion rands every year due to cybercrime. This is very serious. If you look at it in US dollars, it's 116 million US dollars annually being lost due to cyber crimes. And if you look in Zimbabwe, you can see the right screen there. The attack trend in the last 30 days, the amount of traffic that's coming through, attacks that are being targeted at us as a nation, banking projects, botnets, crypto miners, and also even ransomware. So this just goes to demonstrate the attacks are there. It's not something that we talk about, and we talk about it as if it's further in other African countries, as we can see all those other threats that are outlined there. Your online scams. This is where your cyber criminals use fake emails or text messages and pretend that they are coming from someone that you know, someone who is legitimate, so that they can swindle you of money or some other personal identification details that they would want to use for criminal activities. Digital extortion. Digital extortion is happening to a lot of our colleagues, where someone who talked to you over chat on emails, they would pretend to be someone who probably wants to get into a relationship. You get into a relationship, you can start to send each other compromising pictures. Then they turn around and they start to demand that you pay them a ransom, or else they are going to expose you. So this is very serious. Business email compromise. This is where someone gets access to your business emails. They study how you execute your payments within the business. Then they start to originate messages purporting to be you, purporting to be someone with authority, until they find a way of making sure that money is transferred into their account. So this again is a very serious threat, which harms and affects us as businesses. It affects us even as individuals. Ransomware. This was a hit in the last 10 years, but it's still happening until today. And you see statistics that I'm going to share with you, the effects of ransomware. Some will be able to recover, but some businesses will actually fall. They can't even recover their data, and they can't pay the ransom fee that is being asked for. Botnets, we can all be used as bots in our environments if our gadgets are not secure. Once your device is infected, it can be used as a bot, among others. Then they create a network of attacking machines that can be used on the internet, either to push out a denial of service attack on a certain network, or any other malicious activities on the network. So these are all things that are happening within our environment. Now, we just want to talk about malware, and then expand it a little bit further as we go. Looking at malware, this is malicious software which comes in different forms. It comes in the form of viruses. It comes in the form of trojans. It comes in the various forms that, and it can be transmitted or propagated in various ways. When it comes as a virus, a ransomware, Trojan horse, or even remote access Trojans that can be deployed differently in our environment. As a virus, this is a very common term that we use when it comes to cyber security, cyber threats, or cyber conversations. People talk about viruses, but it's just one part of a malware. There are other lots of malwares that can affect us, and they distribute or they propagate differently. A virus will be attached to a file, a legitimate file. You get an email from someone you know. They are sending you information that you are expecting, and the information is actually on that file. But there could be a virus that is attached to that particular file. This is how viruses are spread. So it then becomes very difficult for you to tell, unless you have got the proper tools within your environment to detect files that are embedding themselves in legitimate files that are being shared within the organization. Ransomware, this does leave a ransom note. It attacks your environment. Sorry, with the ransomware, it attacks your environment. It encrypts either the entire system, your database, and it denies you access to your environment. The intention is that you have to pay for you to regain access. But if you pay, sometimes you can get access, sometimes you may not be able even to get your access back. So it's now becomes very difficult how do you proceed as a business? But for us to mitigate against that, it's then very important that we stay protected to avoid a scenario where we have to deal with ransomware, and we are asked to pay money, and we are asked to deposit crypto currencies, so that we can recover our data. With Trojan horses, these are also very difficult to detect. This is where we go to some sites that would say, I've got the drivers for this particular machine, or I've got a software that can convert your PDF to a Word document freely, or I've got a software that you can use to download music from YouTube, and we can turn it into MP3. There are a lot of freebie softwares that you find on the internet. And within those softwares, those applications, as you download and install them on your machine, some of them will carry Trojan horses. They will be there. And once you think it's a legitimate application, you use it, the Trojan horse is already planted in your environment. Once it is there, it now executes malicious payloads. Any kind of malicious intention that the perpetrator is looking at. It could be stealing your data. It could be doing all sorts of things that it can do from within your environment. So these are things that we need to be worried about. Some of the attacks, as they come through, like spyware, they can go in, they can steal your data, they can collect information, they can send it to the attacker, so that they know exactly what is happening on your machine. Sending all that information to the third party, all your passwords, all your information, could be copying certain type of files and sending them across. This is what malwares will do. But what should we do? We need to put in prevention and mitigation measures against this, because they do impact our businesses. They do impact our business operations. They do impact the availability of our enterprise networks, and they also even do impact people at a personal level. We have had cases of people who got scammed, and they get threatened, and some of them even end up committing suicide, because the level of exposure, someone would be realizing that it's not something that I can stand. You're being threatened, you have shared a lot of information, and you get threatened that we are going to share this information with everyone that you know. I know all your, as an example, all your WhatsApp groups. I am in all of them, and I can start to share all that information. People end up killing themselves. Businesses fold as a result of that. So there is a need for ongoing vigilance in terms of for us to mitigate against these threats. Now, these are some of the malware mitigation strategies that we can deploy within our business. It's important to understand them. I always want to start with the people. The first pillar of our defense is the people. You educate your people, you educate people at all levels of the business, all levels of the organization, from your floor all the way up to the executives. No one is immune to be used as a vector when it comes to attacks. You want everyone to be aware of what is happening. You want everyone to be able to detect when there is a possibility that something is not looking good. And you need to do that by educating your people. The other thing that you also need to do is to test. Once you equip your people, you will also need to test to make sure that they are aware of the protocols that you have put in place. You can do your vulnerability test, your vulnerability assessment, check whether the people really know what they need to do and how they need to react. When you look at your data, obviously you want to keep a backup, but you don't want to keep a backup of your data on the very same machine where the application is running. We have seen this in our industry as we engage businesses and we look at within the environment. You do an assessment, they will tell you that we are backing up our data. But where is the backup? The backup is sitting on in a folder that is on the very same machine, and it's just a copy that you have created and you have dumped within the same machine. If the machine is compromised and you do not have access to it, it means you don't have access to your backup data. So these are things that then when you look at it, it's as good as there is no backup. If your backup is sitting in the same machine. Other things to look for as well is to make sure that you can, in the event of an attack, you can quickly isolate. This is now comes to protocol. You can isolate an infected machine, any part of the network that has been affected. You need to quickly and have protocols in place, isolate that so that you can protect the rest of the environment to avoid further spread of maybe it's any malware that has infected that part of the network. Looking at the technology front, you can make use of firewalls. It's very important for any network to have a firewall protection, so that you can filter your incoming, your outgoing traffic. There is two-way malware protection with the firewall. Coming from within your network, and also coming from outside your network, trying to get into your network, you need to be able to filter that out, and you need to be able to stop it. The detection of malware with antiviruses is very important. Use antiviruses to detect malware so that you can stop it before it even infects your machine or it infects your data assets. Then protocols to remove malware. We have studies have shown that the best way to remove malware from any infected computer or personal device is making sure that you are running antivirus security software, and it has to be paid antivirus software. There are a lot of free antivirus softwares that are floating on the market, that are floating on the internet. That's not the best way to secure your environment. You need a paid version of an antivirus software that is always running the latest, picking the latest threats as they come through. AI-enabled antivirus that we now have. Those are some of the tools that you need to deploy within your environment. Going forward, we also want to look at some of the statistics in terms of ransomware attacks, like I indicated earlier, that I'm going to show with you, to share with you some of the effects and what has happened with ransomware attacks. If you look at the global 2023 trends, with the ransomware attacks, there were exploited vulnerabilities. About 36% of the attacks, this is what it was targeting, or compromising credentials through ransomware. Credentials were compromised in different industries, different businesses, or emails, malicious emails being sent once someone has taken over and they are kind of running your entire IT environment. Phishing attacks, about 13% being generated from those ransomware attacks. So these are all the attacks that then within our environments, they would disrupt the day-to-day running of our business. Business operations are compromised. In some areas, it's actually financial exposure that you have to deal with, like the case that I shared with you earlier about Google and a lot of other organizations, even locally here in Zimbabwe, where people get hit and they have to pay. Some of them have to pay to recover their data, or some of them will just have money stolen from them from the organizations. So these are all things that we need to watch out for, and also then to make sure that we take care of within our environment. Like I indicated earlier, some of the impacts of our of the ransomware attacks that we've seen in businesses, your data encryption, you lose access to your data, financial impact, you have to pay, operational disruption, data loss and leakage. People steal your data and they can leak your customer data or some other private data that you hold within your organization, your market plans, your strategic plans, or any other data that you wouldn't want to be out there because it's of strategic importance to your business. There are recovery costs that are associated with you trying to get back what has been stolen from you. And in some cases, you lose money, but you never get the data back. Reputation damage. This is a big thing. Once a business is known to have been attacked, some people will shun doing business with you going forward. And you do not want that as a business operation. Because with a ransomware attack, your partners, your clients, your suppliers, or any other businesses that you probably had your systems even integrated with will consider to disconnect so that they also can limit the exposure that is on their end. And in some cases, there is also regulated consequences where you are not supposed to be sharing customer data, and because of the attack, that data is seen and shared out there with everyone. As a business, obviously, you want to protect yourself from such eventualities, and you need to put in place measures that can protect you going forward. So when you look at measures now that we can deploy, that we can make use of, these are some of the measures that we can put in place. Obviously, this will help us in our businesses if we do follow them through to the end, and if we ensure that they are coordinated, they are not isolated. What I mean is, your employee, as an example, we'll start off with the employee training. The employee training, as it provides cybersecurity awareness to employees, it will then demonstrate and help the employees to be able to identify, as an example, phishing attempts that could be coming through. But as you do the employee training, you also need to go in and put other security measures that complement the training that you put through. Other measures now become, they could be now the protocols that you put in place and the technology that you deploy, so that it can help and it can complement the training that you've taken your employees through. Things like regular backups. Obviously, if you are hit today, but you have got a backup as from last night that is sitting in a remote center, which is not easily identified through your main operation center, it becomes easy for you to recover from that because you've got a regular backup and you have got data that is sitting there, not within the same environment. So this is also critical to ensure that you can mitigate against ransomware attacks. I decided to emphasize the issues of ransomware attacks, because these are issues that are affecting our businesses. You will not read them in the newspapers as much, especially when it comes to our Zimbabwean environment, but it doesn't not mean that it's not happening. It is happening. Some of it is being swept under the carpet, but these are attacks that are happening on a regular basis. Put in place, obviously, security measures, robust cyber security measures for detection, endpoint protection, network security controls, so that you can control your environment. This is very critical. Another very important thing to do as well is to put in place incident response plan. What do we do when we get hit? What do we do in the event of a breach? These protocols must be tested. Employees need to know what to do, and there should always be regular checks to make sure that they are still conforming to the best practices in terms of how do you react in the event that there is a breach that has been detected. Then obviously they need to collaborate with IT security experts. We know so much in our different levels. We interact with experts at the different levels, especially those that have got knowledge that is above what we know, so that those can help us to make sure we mitigate any attacks, and we also can protect our environments. As an IT manager in an organization, you cannot be the security expert, the IT expert in terms of operations. You cannot be the expert in everything that happens within the IT space. You need to recognize where your strengths are and then collaborate with IT security experts in other organizations, in other service provider organizations, so they can help you to protect your environment. Then another part that I also want to talk about, which is also very key, is the issue of social engineering. We are very hospitable people as Zimbabweans. If someone knocks on your door and they introduce themselves, ordinarily you open the door for them. But unfortunately, that is how social engineering then works. people would appear like they know you. They would pretend to know you. They would introduce themselves, but they will use that to manipulate the trust that they would have earned to compromise your environment. We need to be watching out, and we need to be training our people on measures to watch out for, to avoid social engineering. People send messages, people send emails, people do calls. All these are all meant to trick you, so that you can open the door for them, and they can attack you. So these are all things that we need to be watching for, watching against, so that you remain protected at all times. As we move on, we want to look at some other common attacks as well, and how these are executed, common attack techniques. Some of the common attack techniques is like your phishing attack. This is like a broad classed attack. You just send out emails or messages and hope someone will click, and once they click the bait, then you can catch them. You either steal their data, or you lead them into exposing their data. This is how a general phishing attack happens. Then there is a spear phishing, which is a more directed type of phishing, where specific individuals within the organization can be targeted. They know exactly who you are. They know your role. So whatever they are talking to you about is something that is specific to what you do within the business. So you can actually relate to the conversations as they come through. Then there's also the pre-texting, which is again a way of attack where people are sent messages. We have seen this, I think, mid to towards the end of last year. A lot of people lost access or control of their WhatsApp accounts through pre-texting, where someone calls you and they ask for an OTP, and they pretend it's coming from the bank, or they want you to join a certain meeting. So for them to set up that meeting, you need to share that code that has come to your phone. In the process, you lose access to your to your account, and they start to use it for any other means that they want, malicious means, so to speak. So this is another common attack that is hitting our people on a daily basis. Interestingly, some people that I know that are even within the security, IT security space, got hit. So it hits anyone. It does not discriminate. Psychological manipulation, yeah, just akin to social engineering. Executing a social engineering attack, they exploit your conscience, your emotions, and sometimes if it's even things to do with your religion. The message is very sounding very religious, and you are compelled to open it or to share it, or that kind of thing. But in the process, that's just a psychological manipulation. They will ask you to click a link and type "Amen." That kind of manipulation. Then the trust factor as well, like I indicated earlier. As you trust your friends, as you trust your colleagues in the cyberspace, we do not trust anyone unless it's explicitly clear that we know who we are, how we are talking about. And again, with issues of social engineering, the preventions as well, the methods are similar or almost similar to what we shared earlier. Education is key. You educate your people. Make sure that the company is well documented, security policies, procedures, and all employees are taught. In some organizations, you can have a campaign to actually make sure that you test people and that people know about these policies, so that people don't just click yes or accept when it comes to policies. They actually do not know what it is that you are agreeing to. So it's very important to make sure that our people are fully educated, and then they know exactly what the policies and the procedures that are in place to protect against the social engineering or any other such attack that might come through. Then there is the penetration testing. Obviously, we are also saying, let's see if these guidelines really hold. There are various ways of testing, penetration testing, so that you can see, you can send spoof emails, you can send even phishing emails. There are platforms that you can use to do that. You have to test your people to make sure that they know, they have heard, and when we trained them, they are now aware. You do those kind of phishing tests so that you can see if people are still clicking these bait links and opening applications. I mean attachments that are coming from people that they actually do not know. There is also tools like your multi-factor authentication, just to make sure that there is a level of security when it comes to accessing critical business applications. It's not just your password, it's also a password plus another way of authenticating to make sure that it is actually you. You can combine with biometrics as an example on your multi-factor authentication, so that you can beat criminals. Because if it's a biometric combination, it's my fingerprint and my password. Obviously, you can get the password, but you then cannot get my fingerprint. So it's important to institute this kind of multi-factor authentication protocols. Then updating our antivirus and anti-malware software. It's one thing to have it, to have antivirus, to have anti-malware, but if it's not updated, if it's not, you may have it, if it's not subscribed, and it's always giving you a warning that you have run out of your subscription, it is to be useful. It needs to always be updated and running on the latest patches that are available from the vendor, so that you can remain protected at all times. So these are some of the measures that you can put in place. You may allow me, colleagues, just to share with you in quick slides some of the solutions, like I had indicated earlier, that we can look at. But what I want to focus on is we call it the PPT, the three pillars that make up a strong security protection against any threats. The people first. It's definitely the cybersecurity awareness training. These are the things that you need to look into. As an organization, as Daniel Tande, these are some of the things that we also offer to the market. Your processes, obviously, you want to look at your cybersecurity processes and your governance framework, and also the implementation and adoption of those policies. Then finally, or the third part is the technology. The technology part complements your people awareness, your processes in place. Here we talk about the firewalls, the endpoints, email protection, web protection, cloud security, so that if you have all these three pillars talking to each other and complementing each other. Some of the technologies that we have also seen coming into the fray, which is very important for any business, is to consider things like your CCTV. This is to help you identify, in the event that someone actually walks into an environment and they pick, steal something, you can able to go back and see who it was. Nowadays, we have got solutions that can track your laptops, and with the capabilities that if the laptop that is sitting on that laptop, you can freeze it so that someone cannot have access or use it. This is all to protect now your data assets. Issues to do with managed security operations center, which helps to detect any activity that is outside the norm. As an example, if you normally say work up to 9 or 10 in the evening, and this is how you always use your machine. In the day that your machine or your account is picked to have logged in at 1 a.m., it will raise a flag. This is the AI-enabled tools that are now available in our Security Operations Center. It will quickly identify that there is a login on your account which is happening from China, but you have never logged in from China. So before a breach is extended or is propagated across the business, at least it can now be picked, and there could be mitigations to protect you against that. Your vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, very important on a regular basis, just so that you see and you identify any vulnerabilities that are there, and you can try to exploit them to see if someone was coming to attack, what is it that could have access to. Then you put in place the measures to protect yourself after that. And the backup solution, as previously indicated, is also very, that Nandiptante also provides as a business connectivity in various forms, hardware and software. We also do provide that, security as indicated, cloud solutions, and obviously the various value-added services in the form of VoIP and the training, tracking solutions that I indicated earlier. So this is to hand the platform back to our convener. Thank you. Mona Lisa, you may want to help with the Q&A if there are any questions.
Sure. Thank you so much, Edward, for such an informative session and such interesting statistics. I think one that stood out to me was that over 2.2 billion rands has been, lost due to cybersecurity. And I think as people that are in business, it's something that we need to constantly look out for, so that we also protect our businesses. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure everyone has got one or two things that they learned from. I'm seeing Nyasha Alford has their hand up for some questions. You can go ahead.
It's a very good morning, and thank you so much, Edward, for such a brilliant presentation. Let me hasten to say that I'm coming from a law enforcement background where we also talk about these issues that my friend was talking about. And yes, it's true that whilst institutions are taking a lot of initiatives to guard against any form of cyber attack, it's also prudent that going forward, we need to carry out as much simulation, cybersecurity simulation as much as we can to guard against cyber attacks. Why am I saying this? In terms of dealing with any form of cyber attack in the country, we have a mandate according to the Constitution as the Zimbabwe Republic Police, like I initially alluded to, that I'm coming from the law enforcement agency, and I'm one of the focal persons within the ZRP who deal with cybersecurity breaches. And from empirical evidence that we have, I have noted that a lot of these attacks are caused by human errors, which Edward is actually alluded to, because our onboarding and our offboarding processes are skewed, which then facilitates these cyber fraudulent activities that we are seeing in the continent, in Africa, in Zimbabwe, right? So it's important to make sure that whenever employees leave our institutions, it's important to have service level agreements, non-disclosure agreements, etc. Sorry, I wanted to say non-disclosure agreements, because this will help you to protect against your institutions, because the people that you are taking on board to your institutions, they are the ones who are giving out information, working with insider elements within institutions to then commit these cyber crimes. Further to that, you will also see the rise in shadow IT. It's something that institutions should also look at. When my colleague mentioned the people component, the processes component, Those are issues that we should really consider as institutions, because these are the things that are causing a lot of problems within institutions. And from the reports that we receive, we can tell that this happened because of A, B, C, D, because there was lack of cyber hygiene within the institution. Then lastly, let me say that basic cyber hygiene is very important to guard against cyber crimes. Things like clean desk policies. It's very simple. You are leaving your documents on the table and people are just taking advantage of those, taking screenshots, taking pictures of the information, which information is then used by your competitors, you see. So it's important that we guard against basic, we adopt basic cyber hygiene practices to guard against simple things. Thank you very much, Sid and Mtandi, for bringing this discourse.
Thank you so much for that contribution. There are a few questions here that I'm seeing that I'll read out, and maybe Edward, you can then bunch everything and respond to it. There's one from Elliot Zikitwa. Mr. Chikoto, can you please highlight how, as industry players, you're facilitating and promoting the alignment of current cyber requirements and what is being taught in higher education institutions? And I think there's a second question: explain the usefulness of the Zimbabwean Cybersecurity Act in mitigating virtual attacks. There's another question here from Nyasha Kaseke. Please highlight cases in Zimbabwe of cybercrime and how they have been handled using the Act. What were the losses and lessons learned from the action preferred in the case? So maybe you can take those three, and then on the second round, I can go on the other ones that have been highlighted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mona Lisa. To the first question, which is asking on how the industry players are facilitating and promoting alignment of current cyber requirements with what is being taught in schools. You would know that we do run a calendar on a yearly basis where, through the Ministry of ICT, there is direct engagement with the communities. Only this last year, the Ministry of ICT was driving public lectures, getting into communities, getting into schools, so that there is a conscientization of our people from a very young age in terms of issues to do with cybersecurity. As businesses, obviously, it depends on any particular business, but we do engage schools, we do engage colleges, and we do conscientize. We do take students on internship and training to help with the issues of cybersecurity, because issues of cybersecurity do affect us as businesses. So that's the approach that is there. But there is a direct drive through the Ministry of ICT for the collaboration and to make sure that there is bridging between industry and educational institutions. When it comes to whether the Cybersecurity Act in mitigating virtual attacks, I think it still goes back to my presentation when we say, how do we mitigate against attack? The people part, the training part, will help us to understand and to know what needs to be done and what should not be done. The measures that have been put in the Act in terms of data protection are very key to the protection of data assets, and they are also very key to protecting, to alerting people on what to do and what not to do with the data when they've got access to it. So it is quite very important, because issues of data privacy are very important. Knowing what data can be shared, what data should not be shared with any third parties. It's very important. You may know the drive that is being now pushed through Portras in making sure that this Cyber Security Act, the Data Protection Act, so to speak, is seeing live You have seen the trainings now that they are coming up for officers that will be in organizations to make sure that we enforce the Data Protection Act. So coming back again to how that can help, continuous training, adopting of advanced technologies, implementation of robust security protocols, and conducting regular audits. These are the things that we can always implement to make sure that we can continue to protect our environments. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Edward. We'll do our second round of questions. There's one here from Almorton Makolo. I hope I said it correctly. What are the most common types of cyber threats faced by organizations in Zimbabwe, and how are organizations in Zimbabwe addressing the growing cybersecurity risks and threats? And I think the last question is law enforcement in Zimbabwe able to deal with cyber crimes like ransomware attacks? And then there's another one here from Thomas Guatida. What a presentation, Mr. Chikoto. What can we do for CCTV to be calibrated so that they can stand as witness and evidence in our court of law? Let me see if there's any other question. Okay, that's the only question that's there. You can take those ones, Edward.
Okay.
Okay.
I
I'll
my
have my
colleague
colleague
with me
here to take the next.
Hi, everyone. So currently in the industry, we have noticed trends where a lot of organizations have began the continuous training and awareness programs which we offer. These occur throughout the year where we test your employees with phishing emails and various links and attachments just to ensure that they are cyber hygiene. We ensure that they keep their desks clean, policy. So when we do also conduct pen tests, those are factors we consider in. Do they share passwords? Are passwords noted down anywhere? Are whiteboards cleaned after use? Can someone just walk in and walk throughout the building? Then there's adoption of advanced technologies. So currently in Zimbabwe, SOC has become the adoption of advanced technologies. As an organization, you have grown to the point where endpoints do not meet your requirements. So the next step from endpoints is security operations centers. So to build your own within an organization is very costly, and you will also need to have the people to manage 24/7. And this is why it's preferred to have a managed SOC, which will do it for you. And this also has built-in endpoint, and you can integrate it with your endpoint laptops, as well as your website, your servers, and your firewall. So you are essentially covering anything which can produce logs. Then robust security protocols. So this mainly refers to your policies as well and controls in place. An example being when there's funds needing to be transferred, you have different SOPs in place to ensure that in the event there is a breach that occurs, there are steps or levels which are required to send a certain amount of money. And if those levels are not met, then that's a red flag and investigation will occur. Then there's also regular security audits and assessments. By having annual audits, you ensure that your systems are currently running to industry standards. With tech moving so fast, between last year and now, the adoption of AI has really restructured the audit process and also restructured how applications are functioning. With the adoptions of AI built into SOC, you can have fewer people managing it, and it can assess data in large quantities. Then there's also incident response planning. By ensuring you have a method down that in the event an incident occurs, what's the process? Do you shut down the machine? Who do they report it to? It is noticed that many organizations that an incident occurs, they will just decide, oh, let me just delete the file, even though deleting the program which caused the incident doesn't get rid of the malware which is already embedded. And that is something which needs to be considered, that in the event something does happen, they need to report it and have a process which occurs to remediate and properly clean the machine. And there are other factors which to consider, but due to time restraints, we will keep it at this. Thank you.
Mona Lisa, if you allow me, just to respond to the question of the
Honorable
common
sir.
attacks, cyber threats that are faced by organizations in Zimbabwe, you will see that most of our people are still falling prey to phishing attacks. They do open emails, they do open attachments, and they do click links that will then leave them to be exposed. The exposures now, when they come through, some of it now becomes financial exposure. Some of it now comes in the form of data breach. But this is still very common, which takes us to the conversations of training our people as much as possible to mitigate against this kind of attack. So it's still very prevalent. In most organizations, you do your investigations, it still comes to someone clicked a link and the whole organization is compromised.
All right, so I'm just going to take our last round of questions before we wrap it up. There's a question here from Josephine Takundwa. We are losing money through the prepaid debt cards. When they are hacked, money goes without any OTP authorization and banks refuse liability. Do banks have regulations with regards to the level of security on their cards? And then there's another one here. Thank you, Edward, for an insightful presentation. That's from Taviri Ngwa. It's very difficult to conscientize users of a cyber pandemic if statistics are not speaking to the seriousness of the pandemic. Now that the Data Protection Act require organizations to report cyber incidents, are we going to get such statistics from the authority? And then the last one I'll take is from Courage Mutonori. Cyber threats and security are inevitable. What ways can be done to limit such threats so that the business will not think of the traditional means, which was characterized by little leakages and publicity, although not flexible like advanced technologies? Those are our last three questions. Edward, if you could take those. Edward, are you there?
Sorry, I'll allow my colleague to take that question.
Is he here?
You're muted. Nine.
Okay, is there any of the three that you could take while we perhaps wait for him to reconnect?
Okay, in terms of the debit cards and when they are hacked, usually there's a set limit account or set minimum amount which can go through, and you can set this with your bank. So certain banks allow $20 where you don't require an OTP. So these are for quick, fast transactions where you want to buy your regular groceries. This number can be adjusted to 100, 200, but it's up to the user to enable these security features. So the bank may refuse liability because they did offer this when you register your card. Do you want the security measure? If you want to put biometrics, you will have to fill in another form and you will have to set that up. But you can discuss with your bank and beforehand agree to what actually they are holding you liable for and what is a bank liable for in the event of an incident which does occur. In the event you give your card to someone else to use and then they misuse it, you cannot hold the bank liable for those actions. So those are things to consider. But based on the bank and the agreement which you did sign, it will state that in the event a certain incident which does not involve your direct involvement, it will result in the bank being liable. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think that marks the end of our question and answer session. So before I hand over to Melody to give our closing remarks, the ZNCC team is kindly requesting us to put on our videos so that they can have some recordings of this conversation so we can have a picture taken. So I think while Melody is coming on, if you can, kindly put on your video so that we can take a group picture of the meeting. Melody, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mona Lisa. After such a good morning, everyone. After such an engaging session, it leaves me only to say a very big thank you to Mr. Edward Chikoto and the Landem Tande team for such an insightful and elaborate presentation on cyber threats and security. I'm sure there are a lot of takeaway points that we actually got from the presentation from Mr. Chikoto. I think we should stay informed. Cyber threats are constantly evolving, and it's very crucial to stay updated on the latest trends and best practices on cyber security. We also should be proactive. From just what he said, we shouldn't wait for a cyber attack to happen before we take action. We should implement preventive measures, such as strong passwords, regular software updates, and employee training to minimize the risk of breaches. We should also then engage in intelligence sharing, just like what we did, collaborating with Landem Tande, to share intelligence information, which can actually help identify and mitigate potential threats. Thank you so much, Landem Tande team, for that. And Mr. Chikoto, thank you so much. To you, Mona Lisa, I would also like to say thank you very much for moderating this session. You are our executive committee member, and we appreciate the time you take off just to come to our programs. Last but not least, to you, our members who are always here every Thursday, thank you very much. You were so engaging, you were so attentive, and you actually made the program worthwhile. Thank you very much. Please do remember to join us every other Friday for our business agenda on Friday, where we discuss a lot of issues that actually affect our businesses. We do have contacts for Mr. Chikoto, which we will share. He actually told you some of the services that they do provide at Landem Tande, so you can always then get reached to him for more services. So as we close today and as we conclude, we should all remember that cyber threats are not going anywhere anytime soon. And because we are embracing digital transformation, we should stay vigilant, we should stay informed, and we should be very proactive. To everyone, thank you once again for coming through. Landem Tande team, thank you very much, and have a great Friday. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Melody. Thank you, ZNCC team. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Have a blessed day. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.